Hello and welcome to Wake Up Our Faith. This is the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams.
Hey.
What up, bro? Happy Wednesday, man.
Yeah, you too.
And happy Saturday, Sunday to our listeners on the Big Talker. Many thanks to the Big Talker for streaming this. 106.7 FM here in southeastern North Carolina. Thanks to TK in the booth today producing for us. Kevin and I are the co-founders of UPrint, which is a faith and personal development organization based right here in Wilmington. Also a nonprofit and innovative charitable movement, we call it, called the Life Center. And so we are excited to come be with you guys each and every week. And today we've got a question that we are posing. We'll talk through it. It says, what impresses Jesus?
Big subject.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, Kevo, man, let's go ahead and get underway here today.
Yeah, all right. Today is one of those days that it feels like it's flying by. I actually slept, and so I got up a little bit later than normal, and I'm still paying the price for that. So I'm probably 20 minutes behind.
That's okay, man. That's good. I'm glad to hear it.
The actual world. But, well, yeah, and you know, we missed a week last week, and that'll happen from time to time. But you know, we want to keep the energy going, and you know, just look at some different things. But we want to keep people encouraged. I think that's the main thing. Is to me, radical grace is something that demands encouragement. And people have to see God's goodness. So we're tough, and I'm especially tough and very firm, but it's for that reason. And so I just wanted to preface it with that. I think when you stand up for something you believe in, it can, you know, have a firmness to it. And I think people appreciate it mostly.
Yeah.
The ones that don't, you know, that's just too bad. But so that said, we've got a title today that is interesting. I want to take it in a direction, but you could take it in a lot of directions. So, but just think about this, and you know, think about the question for a second as you get into you know, listening to what we're going to get into, and let's just do it.
I like what you said about radical grace. You know, it's a foreign concept, I think, in popular culture. It's certainly not a worldly idea. It's a heavenly idea.
Right.
You know, we tend to come into a place where, you know, I'll forgive you once, but, you know, twice and not so much, and that kind of thing, and, you know, hold grudges and judgment and so forth. But it demands a certain level, certain character and a certain weight to be able to walk around and carry that kind of radical grace. And, you know, a lot of times the world, it's easy when they see that to just throw stones at it. Because they can't wrestle with it internally, right? But like you said, it takes a fortitude and a courage to be able to be steadfast and a firmness, which is ultimately what people need to be freed. You know, it's not candy and sugar. It's actually good, hearty, spiritual food that is going to set them free. And that's what we have the honor to do. And it's great work. And like you said, people are beginning to come awake and be hungry for actual real food, instead of just the cookie cutter stuff that we've seen in culture so much.
Sure, yeah, and I think it's self-evident. You know, it's you can see it and feel it. It's not preachy. It's not religious. It's not any of that. You know, lingo, mumbo jumbo. You know, it's just rock solid, and you have to get into the character of Jesus. And look at his words and the things he said and how he treated people. And it's never, nor will it ever be, about good or bad behavior. You can't make Jesus love you any more or less, period, end of story. That is not on the table. So you have to reconcile that first, and then you can get on with why you're here. What you always have a choice. So I think coming from a place of choice, but then leading, which means going first. It's not the old, bite your tongue and be on the last horse with the golden sword and pointing at the rest of the people to go. It's no, I'm going to go do this. And if you want to come, let's go. Come on. If you don't, that's okay too. I still love you and be friends, but this life is quick. Even if you get the 120 years, which hopefully we will, healthy. But anyway, so the path for this today is the idea of dreaming. And I had somebody last week, somebody that I just adore, who is a precious soul and a great friend. But she says, I get annoyed when you talk about dreaming. And, this is all affectionate, kind of father-daughter feel. But my response is, I get annoyed when people are spiritually lazy. Of course, she will laugh and has laughed at it briefly. It was just a brief part of our conversation, but I really it helped me. I'm glad she said that to me, because it helped me see that a lot of things I see that when I'm working with different people, or we are from a different perspective, they don't always understand the depth of it and what it means.
That's really good.
And so, I'm one to just go, 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 go. Now, my movements are slow, my words are slow, but I don't waste a bunch of time. So, a lot of times I'll jump right to something, and so we've got to help people break this down a little bit more. And so, I appreciate that conversation for this reason. But again, not dreaming isn't an option. Why is that? Because where there is no vision, you will perish. So it's not, you don't have a right not to dream if you're a Christian. You have to. And you don't have to do it all in one day or figure it all out, but you do have to engage this. So we want to talk about what that looks like, break it down. We want to talk about faith. We want to talk about a lot of different things that all circle back into being what it means to be a Christian. Not in a, Reading point two thing. This is different. We're in a whole different season, a different world than where we've come from. So anyway, so we want to talk about dreaming. We want to break that down. We want to talk about that in the idea of Jesus as a person on earth for a moment. He was, and what that looks like in his character. Instead of striving to be like him, to understand the posture and what he's done for us and why, and what we get to do while we're here for a moment. So anyway, that's the direction.
Yeah, the conversation that you just mentioned there about the depth and taking some time to slow down and encouraging people to slow down. It's like I'm looking at my iPhones just sitting here on my desk or whatever, and it's almost like somebody has access to an iPhone that can do quite a lot. It has a lot of functionality to it. But it's like they just use it for a calculator. And they're just like, I got a calculator on here. And you're like, wait, you don't realize there's so much more here.
Yeah.
But in order for people to step in, they have to learn. They have to experience it.
Yeah.
And so there's not a person out there who's listening to this show who has an iPhone who didn't have to go through the learning curve of how you use it and how you utilize it to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
The same is true with our faith. But the reality is we take the time to learn the iPhone. We don't take the time to learn the character of Jesus and his personality and really step into our faith in that way.
Yeah.
So we use a fraction and have access to a fraction of what it is that God allowed us to have access to.
Yeah. Well, that's right. It's a good way to put it. It's not an academic, logistical, humanistic thing. It's like, I don't put a whole lot of weight into Freud and all that garbage. And I think more and more what we're seeing in the world stage is the decay of all these things. I've been saying this for a long time, and I'm just saying it again because you can see it. These people have been pushing this rock up the hill long enough, and it's starting to crush back on them. So you just look at it. Look at the world around you, and you can start to feel some joy. You can start to see it starting to switch and change. The tide is turning. It's slow, and but it's going to be a good uh, cave in on itself thing. We could name 100 things, but you know, it's such a big deal. There's part of me that wants to go down this path, and I'm so tired of seeing children with masks and their parents don't have them, and these kids are wearing a badge of honor, and it's just so destructive. This is terrible, But look at it, look at it. It's toxic. It doesn't work. It doesn't help. But you're going to see more and more people saying, I'm not doing this anymore. More and more places of business, more and more states not doing it. And then the other side of that is it's going to inflame and accelerate the people who are like all in. Their whole pride is all wrapped up in the badge of honor of doing this. But that will wane and fail. It's a great look at where we are, but things are moving and changing, and you can feel it. So you do have to hurry up at some point and make a decision. But to me, it always goes back to what we're talking about, because this is the greatest investment you can make. So if you can start here, then all the rest of that stuff will begin to convict you and fall in place. But it's real easy to go back out and look at it. So what I'm saying is, if you don't understand what we're talking about, all you have to do is look at the acceleration of this artificial garbage across all mankind, all the institutions, all of it.
Yeah.
People are sick of it. The majority of people, not everybody. So that said, I mean, that's a big rabbit trail, but it is important, because we do live in the here and now, from a place of tomorrow, if you will, kingdom now, kingdom coming. So anyway, what does it mean to believe? What does it mean to dream? So I kind of put it in three different levels. Dreaming it's a big thing. One of the fears, I guess, associated with it is, well, it's like a big canvas, and I don't know what to put on it. Or it's like it's like an empty journal. I don't even know what to do with it. So it's a little bit overwhelming. So people are afraid, if you will, of the overwhelming capacity of dreaming, because there's no structure to it. That's not true. There is structure, but you have to impose that structure. It's just like swimming in a pool. You don't want somebody to structure your movements in a pool, but you have to get up and get your suit and your towel and your water and your chair and whatever, and you go to the pool. So it takes a little bit of that. But dreaming needs to be organic. What you don't need to do is sit in a chair and pray all day and become a monk. Nobody's saying that. This is about living this life, working hard, going after stuff, but doing the thing that you feel most led to do. So dreaming is kind of the sky level. It's like looking at the whole farm, your whole entire farm, if you will. I love the farm idea, or now go down to the treetop level, and you're looking at the desires of your heart. So if you're having trouble with the word dreaming, let's take it down to earth a little bit. Fly the helicopter down to about treetop level, let's say 50 to 100 feet, and just consider the desires of your heart and what those are. Those are important. Why are they important? Why are they important? They're important because God put them there. And you don't have a right. You can choose not to, but you will waste your life on security and comfort. These things were put there by God to get us up and moving. So if the big canvas thing is freaking you out a little bit, then relax. It's okay. It's not meant to be hard. It's just most people haven't ever thought about it this way. So you come down to, what are the desires of your heart? And you start to work on them like little puzzle pieces. Well, I love sunshine on my face. I love this. I love to help elderly people. I love to, do this or whatever. And if that's overwhelming to you, then you come on down all the way. So there's 3 Ds. There's dreaming, there's desires, sky level, treetop level, and then there's ground level. And all you're looking for now, if you can't even do the desires of your heart, then you're looking for a little direction.
Hmm.
So a little direction is just getting a first down. It's just a movement forward. Direction means you point and you step. That's the seeds planted in the ground. So so look at it that way. So some people can jump into the whole dreaming thing, but most people struggle with it because they've lived a linear, humanistic approach, and those days are over. Whether we want to believe that or not, it doesn't matter. They are over. So you got to learn this. So the best way to do that is to begin where you're most comfortable, but what will it also propel you forward. You can't be too comfortable about this. It's lazy.
Mm. So, Kev, one of the things that we see when we're walking with folks is when that dreaming thing starts, it has a tendency to become grandiose, and it can get real big, and there's an excitability, which is not bad, but it's like you talk about taking the ball and running out of the stadium.
Right.
I mean, we've talked to a lot of people who start the dreaming process and go, oh, and this, and this, and it's going to be this. And you're like, whoa, okay, this is great.
Yeah.
Keep dreaming. But, folks run so far ahead. So is there a way, like how would you encourage somebody who's starting to dream, but it's getting big and grandiose and, projective and all this kind of stuff? And we've had all kinds of people say, and this is going to happen and that's going to happen. And they start to see so big, but that's a lot of their kind of own infused, emotion and stronghold coming through it.
Well, I don't think that's the majority. I think that's you, and I think that's there's a lot of people in that camp. So I agree, but I also think that the majority of people are afraid,
right,
to dream, and I can name a bunch of them right now who are dear friends. But I think there's a fear of doing that. So you've got sort of polar opposites, and there are both. So you're right. You want to slow down a little bit, right? And I'm not saying you now. I'm saying, hey, me too, right? I mean, me too, a while ago. But I think the part that's most painful isn't that to me as a helper, mentor. It's the ones who are afraid to let themselves go.
They won't. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
not to invalidate. It doesn't. You're right. But wherever you are, you have to understand it. So you have to step into it and go, ooh, this feels a little bit, overwhelming, or, oh no, I'm not accomplishing anything because I'm just thinking about, the edges of the earth and everything in between. So, I don't want to overcomplicate it. It's very simple. You spend time with God. You spend time and you develop a place where you can use you have to be able to see it, feel it, and understand something that he's given you. And it's not rocket science. It's not weird. It's not new age. It's not yoga. It's none of that stuff. It's not The Secret. It's not manifesting. I'm saying all this because I want people to know that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
This is something where you are beginning to tap into something God has given you, and you approach it because he made you to carry out some work here on earth, and that work will utterly satisfy your soul. But if you never dream or begin to tap into the desires of your heart like a child, or even take one step in the right direction, then you will be relegated to a life of either striving for security or falling asleep in the comfort of it. That's all there is.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I mean, I challenge someone to debate me on this. But if the people who change the world, so to speak, whether they're Christians or not, and if they are, then that's eternal. If they're not, that's their business. But we have this mechanism in us, and God puts it in us. He wired us to change things, to innovate, to think outside, to come up with solutions. So purpose is always attached to that, and people. But if you don't let yourself do that, engage that even a little bit regularly, just like studying the Bible, then you are stuck memorizing Scripture. There's no point to it. It's just more academic, digestion, and it gives you spiritual indigestion, and that's what happens. So you've got to be able to dream. It's just as important. All right, I use the word dream a lot because it's a big thing for me. But remember, all you need is one step in the right direction.
Mm.
So I'll give you an example. One seed planted would be if, let's say, you want to help elderly people. Someone had mentioned that the other day to me, and along with type 1 diabetes, I'm like, yeah, I'm seeing that everywhere now. By the way, that's a thing, and I'm so glad we get to be a part of this. But anyway, helping elderly people, like, well, what does that mean? Do you want to go build a home? Okay, well, that's a big picture thing. You get overwhelmed. Well, what can you do right now? You don't have to go, jump from your day job. Just look at something that you want to do and take one step, make one phone call, take flowers to one elderly person, write one note, make one gesture. Do it weekly. That's a seed. That's direction. What you'll see is more opportunities arise, your reputation grows, and your heart sings, and it begins to tap into the desires of your heart. Once you understand that, you recognize, wait a minute, I'm really good at this. I love doing this. I'm going to do it a little more. And you keep doing it, and you keep dreaming. You keep spending time with God. Show me more. Uncover what's in my heart. So what you're doing is you're tapping into what he already put there. This is not about some external thing where you want more crap. This is about tapping into why you're here. You don't need self-help for that. You don't need John Maxwell or Tony Robbins or The Secret or any of this stuff. All you need is the deep, deep intimacy with God. So what impresses Jesus? That's the question. How are we doing on time?
I think we got about 5-7 minutes, TK, something like that. Yeah, 5-7.
So let's come back to what impresses Jesus. That was the
Sure.
thing. You could say this or that. Most people are going to end up with behavior, and that's not true. So I want to debunk that, if you will, and get to the deep thing. So let's form the question in a way that is backed up by Scripture rather than, Kevin or Matt saying something, kind of an interesting question or asking it. Who impressed Jesus? Just name somebody.
The centurion.
Exactly.
I read it this morning. That's funny.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's I've got it on my whiteboard because it's the question that most people don't look at, and because everything else is geared toward behavior. So what impresses Jesus is, and I mean, he said it, right? He said it in all of Israel, I've not seen such great faith as this man's faith. And he might have said it in 10 different ways, and depending on your version, but that's what he said. So that is the question. What impresses Jesus is not this man, but this man's faith.
Yes.
Just say the word, right? I mean, you read it, so you can talk about it, but we've all read it. Most people have read it. But you have to do more than that. You have to look at it and go, wait a minute, is that me? Because if it's not you, then you're not dreaming. This is connected. This guy saw something. What did he see? He knew he had to see it. Jesus was willing to go to his son. He said, just say the word. So if you don't create the environment where you can have that kind of faith, where you can see things, then you're basically walking by sight and not being led by the Spirit.
Right.
This guy, this was pre Pentecost and all that, but think about the character development in that. So that's the only person. I wouldn't say it's the only one that the widow, the widow's mite type of personality, the nard, the perfume.
Yeah, the Syrophoenician woman too, who said even the dogs kind of thing.
Yeah. So when you look at it, you can name other people, but that's the one guy. That's who I was thinking of, and that's what what I put. So it's interesting that you read it.
It's really wonderful. It's how God works. That's just happened to be in Matthew 8 this morning. And you know what stood out to me in that, to make a correlation? One of the things you've always said from early on is, are you aiming to be like Jesus or just a better version of his disciples?
Right.
That's one of the things you've always said.
Yeah.
Well, in that passage, it's amazing that the centurion man is not a Jew. He's not one of Israel. He's not God's people. He's a foreigner.
Right.
He's a Gentile man.
Yeah.
He's a Roman man. And then the very next passage is the 12 disciples in the boat with Jesus, or however that was, during the storm.
Right.
And it says, "Oh, you of little faith."
Mm-hmm.
And I saw it for the first time as a contrast of these Jewish men who had Jesus with them all the time and this centurion man who just had faith.
Yeah.
And that's what impressed him. So that's a really interesting contrast.
Yeah. So the centurion man would not need a mask. He wouldn't try to argue it. He wouldn't. He wasn't given to the ways of humanism. All of these things, whether it's sports, Hollywood, entertainment, churchianity, and big buildings and big budgets, and this guy didn't need any of that. He didn't even need to be called a Jew or an Israelite. All he needed was, this guy would have been sleeping in the boat. This guy. So that's what was so impressive about Jesus. And this guy, among a very few handful of people, knew how to believe. So when you're talking about dreaming, we want to make this connection. When I ask the question, we'll come back in our second part and dig in. What does it mean to believe? Most people have some idea, but we need to unpack that and really talk about that. We need to connect that to dreaming, to the desires of the heart, and to a simple step in the right direction. It's all connected.
Yeah.
So, the centurion is our prototype, if you will.
Yeah.
So I'm glad, that's funny and neat. Most people look at it and go, I don't know, or they don't remember.
Right.
So.
That's good stuff, man. Guys, thanks so much for tuning into the first segment. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be back for more Wake Up Our Faith right after this. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for tuning in to Wake Up Our Faith. We want to take a moment during our break to recognize our corporate partners and all they do to support our program and our ministry here in the city. One of them being Chris Hutchins with Guaranteed Rate Mortgage. Chris and his team have nearly hundreds of years of experience among them in the mortgage business. If you are in the process of buying, selling a home, or refinancing, make sure to give Chris Hutchins at Guaranteed Rate a call, 910-344-0304. Also, Blue Wave Dentistry. They provide comprehensive and personal dental care located at the entrance to Brunswick Forest, just outside of Leland in Brunswick County. Chad Biggerstaff and his team are wonderful folks. You can reach out to them on the web, bluewavedentistry.com, info@bluewavedentistry.com, or via phone 910-383-2615. We also have a new addition to our corporate partner team here, and that is the Sheely Insurance Group. They are an insurance broker specializing in the coastal insurance market, and we're excited to have them on board. TJ Dunn is one of our great friends and contacts over there. I sat down with TJ last week, and he shared a little bit about their products and services and his commitment and dedication to building relationships with clients that goes beyond just having a policy, but actually having somebody you can trust and call. 910-408-0300. Welcome aboard to the Sheely Insurance Group. Also, the Rising Tide Real Estate Team. This is a full-service real estate brokerage team based out of the intracoastal realty market. You have Sherry and Jean Engel, Angie Poole, and Matt Steiner there. If you're buying or selling a home anywhere in the surrounding area, make sure you give them a call at the Rising Tide Team, 910-620-7177. Also, Dr. Greg Veman at Seacoast Skin Surgery and his ministry, Everlasting Strength. You can check him out on the web, everlastingstrength.org. And give them a call at 910-256-2100. Freeman Landscaping is Southeastern North Carolina's largest privately owned landscaping and irrigation firm, family owned and operated, residential and commercial landscaping and irrigation. Make sure you give them a call, 910-796-1166. our good friend Christopher Riley at Cap Trust of Wilmington. Their mission is to enrich the lives of their clients, colleagues, and community through sound financial advice. Chris and the team at Cap Trust Financial can help you with any long-term financial needs you might have. 910-256-8882. Also, Century 21 Swalyer & Associates, family-owned Century 21 agency, Carolina's most successful Century 21 agency, more than 30-plus years in the business here in southeastern North Carolina. Jeff, Whitney, and the team over there are great. Make sure you give them a call if you have any needs or want to get into the real estate business. 910-256-0021. And last but certainly not least, Physical Therapy Services of Wilmington. That's on the web, ptservicesofwilmington.com. Simmerman family, family-owned and operated since 1983. They are Wilmington's premier physical therapy service office. A couple of locations here in Wilmington. Make sure you give them a call, 910-763-8286. Again, thanks to all of our corporate partners. Now back to Wake Up Our Faith. Hello and welcome back to Wake Up Our Faith. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams in studio today. We are glad you have joined us. This show is streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and it's immediately published to our additional platforms. You can find us on Telegram, Rumble, and BitChute as well. The podcast is found at Spotify, iHeart Radio, as well as iTunes. We have hundreds of hours. Kevin's pretty cool, man. I looked, I was uploading or whatever, and it keeps a tally for you. We're approaching our 200th episode.
Wow.
That's pretty wild, man.
Yeah.
That's 4 years of weekly episodes.
Yeah. Well, hopefully some people are starting to listen.
Yeah. It's funny, man, because we're talking about this whole thing of like small steps of faith, you know?
Yes.
And you and I joke.
Right.
I mean, back in the day when our first studio, the ceiling tiles are falling in and we still got some issues here. But God has been so faithful, man, just to move this movement of family, these people who are hungry down the field, man. It's just awesome and exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the right people come along and it is family, and that's what the church is. It's a big family. You know, it's not a hierarchy or a bureaucracy. It's people.
Amen.
And it's our Lord's people, and you know, we want to love on them, but we want to love on them like the same way our Father in heaven teaches us to do that, and that's often a dose of firmness, you know, leadership. But you got to go first.
Amen. That's that swift, loving kick. Right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Well, before we dive back into today's
got a question.
content, we do have a listener question. So TK, you've got that queued up here. We have a question from Claire Steiner.
Hey, this is Claire Steiner. Thank you so much for answering God's call to help people wake up their faith. And I know from personal experience that when Jesus removed the scales from my eyes, you know, and he wakes you up to the more of God, it's literally the best, and it's so freeing and so exhilarating. However, you quickly realize that most of your peers and your loved ones and even people that you thought had great faith are actually hitting the snooze button because they want to stay in that comfort zone. And sometimes even these people want to tell you to go back to bed because you're crazy. So when you decide to stay up and keep walking along that higher road and not go back into your old ways, you can feel a sense of loss or loneliness. So I was just wondering what you would say to these people experiencing this range of emotions and sometimes pushback as they are waking up. And what does UPrant and the Life Center have available to connect people who do feel alone in their walk? Thank you so much for taking my question, and I hope you answer it on the air. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you so much, Kevin. Love you guys.
Thanks, Claire, for the call.
Wow, what an eloquent, poetic. She's such an angelic force.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate the question and the encouragement and just the friendship. So I guess there's several things there. One is you outgrow people. I'm just putting it bluntly. And when you do, that's a difficult scenario. It can be. And then how do you deal with that in a way that is not the antithesis, but more of a encouragement to come forward? Think about what Jesus was teaching us just by being Jesus. Remember, he did everything he did by faith. But at any moment, he could have done it a different way, and he didn't. So he rose to the occasion every time. He could have done it. But if he'd have done anything, if he'd have called 10,000 angels, then we're toast, because we would then elevate him beyond being a person. And, it says he's all man. He's all God, all man, two different roles. So it's a long answer. But the thing is he shows us by who he is exactly how to live this life by faith in the Father. And that's not his Father, it's our Father. And he says that. And he does have brothers and sisters, and we're it. So you can't argue this. This is Scripture, right? All right, so back to Claire's question. When you grow, then my contention is leadership is lonely. It's hard. And I spent a lot of time in that place. But what happens is God will bring the right people along. So when you understand it from a place of why does it matter to you, now, that sounds like a harsh question. Is it coming from fear or some form of angst or wanting relief, or is it coming from absolute peace about moving forward? When you move forward, when you're growing, then what happens is people go out of your life. Now, the ones that don't, that you live, your life in the same aura or
circle
or whatever. Let's talk about extended family. Then what you can do is simply be firm, gentle, and joyful. So you don't have to allow the things they say into your heart, but you don't need to argue with them.
That's a good point.
Just be kind to them, but you be very firm. And, there's no debate. I call it a bank vault with a smiley face, which means you guard your heart. You don't negotiate where you're going or who you are. No one can judge your experience with God from their inexperience of it. So once you get a hold of that, you don't have to debate anymore. There's no debate. You move forward, and God will bring the right people around you to support that, but you don't need to argue. So what you do is you go from being a doormat, which is what a lot of people are afraid of, or losing people, to being a welcome sign above the door. So that's, I learned that a long time ago and had a lot of rocks thrown at me. It happens. It's part of it.
Yeah.
So we need to pray for thicker skin rather than softer rocks. Anyway, that's a long answer.
Yeah, but it's very, very real, because when you do start to wake up and you do start to have revelation about this nearness with God, and if He dwells in you, you got His Spirit, and there's work to be done. It is foolishness to those around you. I mean, that's biblical truth.
That's right.
And you have to be okay with that. And, of course, I know Claire, Claire personally. I mean, there's something in us where we have a tendency to just want to hug people and be in relationship with them. And so it's extra hard when you're a pleaser by nature, right? That thing. And when people start to kind of come against you. So ultimately what I think I've found in that, my testimony from it, Claire, is once you are free from that thing of wanting to please people and wanting to convince them and wanting to do that, then you're actually free. Because I didn't even realize for years that I was actually attached to that. I was hooked to that. So God allows it because you need to be free from it in order to step into what He has.
Yeah. Well, freedom takes time. There's a lot of stuff. We call them strongholds, and they're behind the periphery. And a lot of people think they're free, and they're not. But I think that what it means is, are you moving in the right direction? And you will have some casualties. it's pruning. And you're here for a mission. You're here to carry out something. What does that look like? So what does it look like for you? That's where you have to focus. And if people are against that, then you have to get on with your life, and you dust your feet off. But I would add this to what you said. If you lead, if you go, if you rise to the occasion, then people will follow.
Yes,
the right people will follow, and it's a big subject.
Yeah.
But you don't have to fret or worry. That's not from God. You have to move forward. And we can segue that into what we're talking about.
Absolutely. The part of dreaming. Real quick, one last thing, too. She asked about resources. What we offer from UPrint and Life Center perspective. You add to it. I was just going to mention, that's one of the reasons why we created the Portable Faith Community, is a very simple way for folks to get plugged in.
Right.
Because you're going to get daily encouragement, you're going to get prayer intercession, you're going to get natural community, you're going to get access to resources, you're going to get access to mentoring. So all of that's the doorway, or one of the doorways, where folks can step in and get plugged into that. And if anyone wants to do that, we'd welcome you to join us at wakeupmyfaith.com. You can get subscribed there as a charitable contribution to the nonprofit and get access to all of that. So you can add to that if you'd like.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people think that you get a text and that's what we do. And that's just not true. That's just a little icing on the cake. We have all kinds of materials, and they're not stuff you can buy off the shelf. They're fantastic. But you have access to a lot of materials, and that's growing. The other thing is we are doing a whole lot with a very few people. We haven't spent a lot of money on marketing, which most people do. So, our message needs help. We need help in these areas, but we've chosen to go very slowly. And so, I was walking with somebody the other day. I hadn't seen in a while, a friend of ours, mutual friend. And he said, man, I wish I was talking to him about what Life Center has done and is doing. He said, man, I wish people knew that. I wish people knew that. I said, well, tell them, I don't. So I think that, there's a lot more to what we're doing, but we are going slowly, and we have very few people, ground level execution. So it's tough, and it takes time. But anyway, there's way more to what we're doing and where we want to go. If more people would jump in and help and do the things they say, then we would get there a lot faster.
Yeah.
But we're not relying on them. We're trusting God while we lead. And but anyway, Claire is certainly one of the forward thinkers, and just a beautiful soul. We love her and appreciate your question.
Absolutely. So tying all this back into what impresses Jesus, we left off with the centurion, the story of the centurion. His faith was radically impressive to Jesus. He called it out. It's in Scripture. We see it there. And so let's step back into that conversation.
Yeah, well, what was impressive wasn't the person, it was the thing underneath it. So it was his faith. So what is that? What does that look like? Everybody says, well, I have faith, but, to some degree. But what does that actually look like? And I think most people don't know, just like most people aren't free and they think they are. It's all about some type of behavior pattern or some language that they speak, or raising their arms, or these things are done. They're gone. They don't hold any weight any more than a building. Jesus said, "Tear it down in 3 days, and I'll rebuild it." I mean, they didn't even know what he was talking about. We're at a time of spirit and truth worship, not religion, not lingo, not mantra, not bureaucracy. Celebrity. It's all done, and I'm saying that, maybe I'm saying it ahead of the game a little bit here, but you're going to see it. So jump on.
Yeah.
So really, our job is to get up every day and live out the thing he put in us, period. We don't negotiate that. We go slow. We let God put the right people in our lives, and we give no authority to anyone unless we know He's put that person in our lives. That's a huge area. So tapping back into that, this centurion recognized something. So what does it mean? What does it mean to believe? Jesus said, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be done for you. How does that reconcile with the heart is a desperately wicked crowd who don't understand a redeemed heart? They don't understand what Jesus paid for. You know, they see us as dirt, and God redeemed us. We're not dirt. God made us. He created us. Study Psalm 139. Jesus rescued us from the enemy, a fallen angel, evil, who stole us away from our parents, if you will. Look at it that way. Jesus saved us, but He also set us back on mission, on our mission, the mission of God that He made for us. So that's what we've got to do, and it will utterly satisfy your soul, and it will work. Provision, all of it's tied up in it. So if you're over here trying to figure it all out by man's ways, instead of being a good steward of the things God's given you, then you're off track. And that's the definition of sin, off the mark. You're failing from the thing He's given you. So you have to dream. You have to understand the desires of your heart, and you have to take a step in the right direction. What does it mean to believe? So, you know, I'm circling around this, and I say the same stuff to people over and over and over, and I can go on for hours. And there's an intensity about it because it's loving. You know, I preface this whole conversation with this. But what does it mean to believe? You don't get to walk away from that with some cliche answer. Otherwise, you will continue to do things the way you've always done them. And there's no reason for us to be involved in your life if that's what you're up to. So you want to grow? You want to get somewhere? First of all, look at Jesus as your model, and then who was impressive to Him, and then what's underneath that. This guy believed. He just believed. Simple, huh? So what does it mean? That's what we want to talk about with whatever time left we've got.
Yeah. This concept of faith, radical, you said radical grace as we started off today. The radical faith, uncompromising, unshakable faith. You know, that thing. I remember when we first met, and I read a little bit of your story, and I saw that in you. I think the first time that someone really encounters radical, uncompromising, unshakable faith, especially if it's somebody who's been churched for years, it fights against every practical bone in your body. Your brain wants to reject it. But there is a hunger underneath in the heart that says, you know what? I've tasted and I've seen and I've traveled and I've done, and there is something here, right? What's amazing about it is it says in the scripture we were talking about the centurion recognized the authority of Jesus. It says that he recognized the authority. When you recognize the authority of that kind of faith, it creates this thing in you, and you have to relinquish your own understanding in order to step into it. And that's the thing that I see looking back on my old self.
Yeah. Well, no, it's a good point. It's I think the future, your future, any of our future demand that we look. Think of it this way. When we see the Father, and that's what we're aiming for. He didn't say, pray to baby Jesus, and I'm being silly. He didn't say, pray to me.
Yeah.
He said, our Father. That's huge right there. Well, I've been at this a long time, but when I get around people who see that, immediately there's freedom in that, sonship. Wow, this is fantastic. Okay, we can be done now. Oh, no, there's way more to this. So, but you see the Father through the Son. You're in heaven. He's at the right hand of the Father. You know, I say it, I get frustrated because I say it so much. You see the Father through the Son. You don't have to acknowledge all these things all the time. You walk around knowing this. You're talking to the Father you're wearing Jesus on you. He is on you there. You're there in spirit. Try to debate it. Let's go. He lives here through us. He's in us, we're in him. This is what abiding means. He pours himself through us, through the Spirit, and he sees people through us, and he carries out his work through our hands. He's not here physically, but we are, because we are his hands and feet. We are his body. It all adds up. I'm not opening up this for a debate. You can if you want. It doesn't matter. This is where we're headed. So if you understand that, just that one thing, then you realize and recognize, wait a minute, God made me. He saved me. I'm ready to go. I recognize the authority of Jesus. Now, what's next? Because the more time you waste stirring around all these things instead of getting on with it, then you can feel free and satisfied. Now, that's where the centurion was. He said, I don't need all that. I don't need all your lingo. I don't need all this stuff. I just know. Now, that is where we need to get people, so you can be free and happy and enjoy your life. It's not drudgery. It's an adventure. And your circumstances, you got to stop complaining about them. It's rise to the occasion. Go. If you got a complaint, then complain uphill to God or your spouse and work through it. But don't linger there. Get on with who you are. You're wasting your time if you don't. So what does it mean to believe? How do you get to be like this centurion, in other words? Or how do you look at Jesus in the boat sleeping and go, wow, that's not just who I want to be, that's who I am. That's me, right? So meaning, this self-perpetuates. You've got to believe. You want to see something happen in your life, you have to believe. You have to guard your heart. What happens in your heart? Well, you have to see it, imagine it, feel it. You have to go there. What does it mean when Jesus says, believe this, and then you'll receive it? It's not magic. It's how God created us. So a redeemed heart has this ability and power. Well, God will guide it. If we are his completely, utterly, if our heart is, then we become trustworthy. If we trust him with everything, literally trust him, not saying it, but with everything, then we become trustworthy to him, and he will withhold nothing from us. It's perfect. We're not. We're just excellent vessels because it's a contradiction. We're in an imperfect, temporary world. This table is temporary. It was an idea before it's a table. Every day's Christmas and Easter.
Amen.
So, you can talk about it, celebrate it, and put things online. And that doesn't do anything for Kevin because, look, it doesn't. I'm done with that. I was done with this 15 years ago. And I put up with it, and that sounds arrogant, and I just don't care either. What matters is, well, let me tell you what matters. We ran into a kid the other day. He's a fantastic kid, wonderful human being, and we could tell. We can walk around and tell. Now, if you want to know what that feels like, you got to be able to dream. You got to be able to step in a little bit. But we knew, and we, Life Center helped him. He waited on us at our table, and we got a decent meal and everything. But this kid was impressive. But you know what he says? He says, "I want to cut hair." He said, "But my dad wants me to do a more manly job." So he went and got some other thing going on, and Life Center does. But that kid is he's what Jesus is, and I don't want to go too deep into it, but that's what we need to be doing instead of going, he is risen and all. Yes, he's risen. Yes. Not putting people down for saying it. Exactly. Amen. Now, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, let's get on with it.
What does it mean to believe? Quit with all the platitudes and get on with being like Jesus. Now, that means you got to dream. You got to feel it. You got to see it. You have to go there. Spend some time seeing yourself whole, healed. Walk around that way. Visit your future. You can. There's no other way to describe what Jesus is saying. If you believe it, I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
What does it mean to believe first? That means there's an exercise going on in your heart.
Mm.
So you have to start with rest.
Yeah.
And you have to let him in and talk to him and dream with him. If you can't do it at sky level, don't worry. If you can't do it at the treetop level and the desires of your heart, don't worry. Just take one step.
Yeah.
Spend 10 minutes and create something there with him. And what will happen is you'll see it show up in your life. And this is how it works. It's simple.
Yeah.
But most people are afraid of that. They want to go out and do it outside of that in an inferior way, and you will continue to do that. And then the best you have is what you can stack up, rather than, what God has for you to accomplish here on earth as a part and a participant in His work.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Well, this is great stuff, as always, Kev. Thanks for pouring your heart out, man. Thank you to you and Holly for the work that you guys have established with the Life Center. It's an honor to be a part of it. We thank our listeners for tuning in today to Wake Up Our Faith. Connect with us on the web, youprint.life, youprint.life. We'll be back next week for another episode of Wake Up Our Faith. See ya.